Have you ever wondered what it takes to run for political office? We're all interested in government politics, how people run the government, how people run our lives. And there's always this curiosity that you may have, like, what if I were to do this? Well, we're going to talk to somebody who is actually doing this right now. He's running for political office. You'll learn all about him on this week's edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report, which, as always, is brought to you by...
Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard.
The Menden Honey Falls Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. Join us each episode as we discuss fantastic topics ranging from history to science to the strange and the wonderful, as well as the treasured spirit with which our region has infused America. We challenge you to consider all things Greater Western New York, from our region's very beginnings to how it inspires, how it empowers, and why it is so admired. Here's the host of the State of Greater Western New York Report, Chris Carosa.
Bet you thought I forgot how to do that. Well, welcome everybody. Once again, this is the State of Greater Western New York Report. We've been off for a couple of weeks, but we're back again, and we've got a very exciting guest who's doing a very exciting thing, like I referred to. If you, at any point during this broadcast, if you're a member of the live audience, that is, just feel free in the chat or the Q&A to send me a question, and I'll refer to our guest. Our guest is Luis Martinez. He's running for the 55th District, New York State Senatorial seat. We'll get into that, but first, let's learn a little bit more about him. Luis, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you started off doing things before you got to the point where you were running for office.
Buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. I just want to welcome you to this show. I haven't been on this show, I've been on several others, but I would love to speak with you about the beauty of Western New York. We came here from Pennsylvania about 26 years ago, and we have stayed here. It's the longest we ever lived in one community. And we'll get into a little bit later about how I came to not aspire to, but to accept the assignment of political office. And that's exactly how it happened. But to go back in time, how did I get into it? I remember buying my newspaper route on a bicycle. First, I had to buy the bicycle, and then I had to buy the newspaper route. And that's how I started in business. To this day, fast forward all these decades, I'm still in business. I'm a consultant on human resources for corporate clients. And then they asked me to do this, and I have accepted the challenge. So I'd love to tell you more about it as the show progresses.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your business background, because I think that's kind of fascinating. You actually were involved in some major operations that, with names that people would recognize. I don't know if you're allowed to reveal those names or not, but just tell us a little bit about what you did primarily before you became a consultant.
Well, thank you. My career started kind of zigzagging because I used to aspire to become a clinical psychologist. So I studied a lot of psychology, and I actually worked as a both a counselor and a psychometrician. I was a bilingual school counselor and psychometrician many years ago, but I wanted something larger than just talking to one person at a time. So then I found a job in the federal government in Philadelphia, and I became the region supervisor for the collection of unemployment statistics for 5 states: Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and West Virginia. I was very young for that, but I learned supervision. I was supervising 142 people. That took me into corporate life, and then went into private enterprise. For example, Exide Battery Company, and then I became the chief HR officer of the largest hospital in Pennsylvania. And from there, 26 years ago, we came to Xerox, and then I retired from Xerox. So those are the companies where I learned a lot about corporate environments and managing people across continents, literally. And so I love doing it. Today I'm a consultant, and some corporate entities like that hire me to do some work for them.
So, Luis, when you started getting involved in the political arena, what were the first steps that you took? How did, well, actually, let's go back before that. What was it that interested you about politics that sort of brought you into the sphere?
Well, interestingly, I wasn't interested in politics. I mean, I was a voter, and I became a certified poll inspector here in New York because I wanted to see sort of the process, the logistics of how people vote and what happens to those votes. And I did that for several years. And to be honest with you, the Republican committee of Monroe County was after me for a few years to run as a candidate, and I had resisted that because I had never aspired to be in politics. I have aspired to do the things that I did do, and there I'm still doing them, you know. But so they came looking for me, and they finally convinced me early this year. It's only been 6 months, like around March, April, that I said, okay, I'll do this. And but it's on a parallel track with corporate life, but not the same thing at all. It's a totally different way of doing things.
You know, it's interesting you bring up your history in the business environment, working in business. And somebody made a comment when I did the intro. I said, government running our lives. He says, no, it's more like government ruining our lives, not running our lives. Okay, I stand corrected. But it made me think of this question, and that is, you have this business experience. Why do you think that's so critical to serving as an elected official? Like, what do you lose if you don't have the business experience? And how does that lack of business experience actually harm the citizens? You know, if their elected officials have never figured out how to run a business.
So thank you. That's an excellent question, and it's very, very apropos. And by the way, you know, Chris and I have not rehearsed any of this, so he doesn't know what I'm going to say. When I was the head of HR for the largest hospital in Pennsylvania, 930 beds, I created a sense of urgency, and it was two words: patient first. Patient first. So then when going back to corporate life, and I'm a consultant now, what is it? What's my mantra? Client first. We have to understand the needs of the client. We have to understand the needs of the patient. And so in governance, in a way, I was in governance when in the corporate environments where I was. I had to pay attention to what my clients wanted, which was the employees, which in turn they had to worry about what the clients wanted. Otherwise, we'd go out of existence. The government doesn't act that way, and that's the flavor that I want to bring to the equation, which is my constituents first. So I'm going to go from patient first to client first to constituents first. So I'm going around gathering information from my would-be constituents, my potential constituents, asking them, what is it that you find wrong? What is it that you'd like to see right? What is it that troubles you? What are the problems that I should address? I'll give you one I just found out like an hour ago. I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and a superintendent of a public school system said that he's obligated, the district is obligated in all of state New York to buy one electric school bus for every 8 school buses. That's horrendously expensive, and we don't need electric school buses in upstate New York. We know those batteries aren't going to work. So I said to him, well, that school bus battery is dead on arrival with me, because I will try to introduce legislation to abolish that requirement, which is absolutely absurd in upstate New York. You know, having a $500,000 for one bus to run on batteries, and the electricity comes from coal plants. So it's just absurd on its face, and it's not what my constituents want. So my constituents are the people who pay property taxes, the people who pay for public education in their respective districts, and districts can be different on purpose because that's what the people want. So see how emphatic I'm getting already? I'm not even in office, and I'm already talking like this because it's that important. So that's what I want to do for them.
And
Constituents first.
yeah, I so you mentioned that we didn't rehearse this beforehand. And by the way, that question wasn't on my list of questions. That actually came from the audience. So I didn't rehearse even what I was saying beforehand. I think that you kind of are hitting on a point that a lot of people, and again, we want to try to, in this segment, just address how you as a person feel and are running for office. You know, you were a regular citizen, like you say, 6 months ago, and now you're running for political office. With your business experience, I mean, obviously, you were talking to a lot of people while you were in business, a lot of different areas. Politics is a different forum, just even within the party. So as talk to people within the party, I don't mean voters, I mean actual other politicians.
Yes.
Do you find yourself being a little bit different because of the enormity of your business experience, or are there other people like you involved in politics?
There are some people like me. There's a fellow who's running for New York, or excuse me, for U.S. Congress, and he's also a business owner that you would recognize, and he has the business aspect of his, in his career, and also which is influencing his campaign. But it's matter of fact, most of us are. The only ones that are not is typically attorneys that want to be a judge, and they simply are have been attorneys. And I don't mean simply; I mean the business of being an attorney is different from the business of being that I've done, trying to create a product that a client likes, and then the end of life of that product, and recreating the product so that they will still like it. Otherwise, you go the way of Blockbuster and you go the way of Kodak film. So you have to address these things before they happen. You have to preconceive them before they happen so that you can stay in business. But there are some of us who can talk to each other in business terms, like I've been doing, and it's important to bring, for example, on the subject of budgets. Let me just dwell on that one, right? So, Mr. Martinez, what would you do on day one concerning New York State spending? I would say I would freeze the budget, and you can quote me on this. I would freeze the budget on day one for 1 year. Why? Because at the end of 1 year, we will experience what's known as structural turnover. Structural turnover is people retiring, moving away, taking another job, and that structural turnover will reduce the payroll, which means that our expense of that budget will go down. So I would freeze the budget for 1 year, and then I would make some really difficult decisions about the following year. And when I say things like that, some people will cringe because they want to grow their budget and I want to shrink the budget. And right there, I just gave another example of things that I would do from corporate experience. What works, what doesn't work, that can be applied in government. But the people who have been in government all their life, they have no idea what I'm talking about.
When you talk about New York State government, this is more broadly on the state government. One of the things that people bring up is that we're effectively controlled by downstate New York City. And no matter how many people who agree with you from Western New York or Northern New York, there's just not enough votes in either the Assembly or the Senate to affect any change. Have you thought about how you might deal with that, and maybe how your experience in business, because I'm sure in business you've experienced the same sort of thing where,
Yes.
oh, look, there's no way this project is going to work. The odds are against it, but then it ends up working. So tell us a little bit about that within the context of New York State politics.
Another good question. So let me take you back to the late 80s and 90s when I was chosen as the chief human resources officer of the largest hospital in Pennsylvania. Now picture the president of the hospital surrounded by a room full of what we call white coats, which are the clinical people, the head of pediatrics, the head of epidemiology, or the head of surgery. All of those people are physicians, men and women. And there's the president, my boss, and there's me. And we're both what we call suits. We're in a coat and tie. I don't have any governance over the chief of pediatrics. I have no authority over him. And maybe even the president doesn't either, without getting the sort of the existence of the other white coats. Yet I had to create, approve, and pass and deploy policies that affected all the clinicians and all the people around the table. How did I do that? Well, I used the psychology. Remember, I have a graduate degree in psychology. I used the psychology to navigate corporate boardrooms like that. Oh, by the way, there was a corporate board of which I was also a part of on explicit projects, and I would work with them such that we got things done. I'll give you one example real quick. When I arrived in that hospital in what was it, 1988, they had no drug-free workplace policy. I created it. I started in April. By July the 5th, after we came back from July 4th vacation, the 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 system-wide drug-free workplace policy was in place, and it included the physicians that were on the payroll. Now that was unheard of in those years. You included the physicians on the payroll? Absolutely, because guess what? They have more access to drugs than anybody else in the system. So it went forward, and that we took out all the people who were doing drugs and all the people who were dealing drugs in the hospital. We got them out. We got them through a policy that I passed by getting the consent and approval and advocacy of the white coats. I did that. So back to what would I do in Albany? I would have to do something like that too, because I can't tell those people what to do, just like I couldn't tell the physicians what to do. And yet we have to get things done. So I'm hoping that the gifts, I call them gifts in the sense that I have a sense of how to do that, that the things that are the skills that I have brought from experience will work in Albany as they did elsewhere.
Well, very good. We have a couple more questions coming from the audience, but first we're going to take a commercial break. If you have more questions, put them in the Q&A and we'll get them to Luis. Otherwise, we'll see you right back.
Through the mists of time, nature and man have both created and buried treasures beyond the imagination. With the ages, these riches slowly dissolve into mere myths until they are forever forgotten. But there are those brave souls who tirelessly cling to the truth, ever seeking to discover the undiscovered, to reveal what has always been there, to uncover the hidden gems of a land thought forsaken but loved by millions. 50 Hidden Gems of Greater Western New York. Discover the secrets in your own backyard. Buy your copy now at 50hiddengems.com.
Okay, welcome back to the State of Greater Western New York Report. I'm Chris Carosa. Our guest today is Luis, and Luis is going to be telling us all about his background. Luis Martinez, your name and your voice suggests that, and I cheated, so I know a little bit about your bio, but we had somebody ask a question where she says that it suggests that you maybe didn't originate from Pennsylvania before you came here, that you actually had prior stories or lessons from another place. And she wants to know, how did your choice to come here, and I think she means America, I'm not quite sure, how did that choice affect your thoughts about, what New York State needs? So I hope that I asked that question clearly, but tell us a little bit about your very beginnings and maybe how that informs you about what you think about New York State.
Sure, thank you, Chris. I was born and raised in Cuba, and I was in Cuba long enough to finish sixth grade in a private Methodist school, which had been created by an American mission, a Methodist USA mission. So I was sent, and I mean sent, in a Pan American Airlines flight from Havana to Miami alone when I was 12 years old by my parents. Now, why would they do that? because Castro had taken over. I witnessed the Cuban Revolution. My aunt and uncle were part of that revolution. They didn't know that Castro was a communist, so they were soldiers in that rebel army. So I saw um, a a communist takeover of the island, except we didn't know they were communists. I was there during the Bay of Pigs invasion, and I saw what happened. The airfields getting bombarded and all that. So anyway, they sent me to the United States when I was 12 years old, and then eventually my parents followed. So I am a legal immigrant. I came here with a passport, a visa, and a host family. Very important. That's not what's going on at the southern border today. Those people are invading us, and that's a whole different topic. I could spend hours on that. They're invading us illegally, and they don't have a host family, and a lot of those children are being trafficked into sex slavery. And so, again, another topic. You can call me back on that one. But the point is that uh, I still have, even at my age, I still have a perspective, if you will, from outside the fishbowl, looking at what happens in the United States. And one of the reasons that I accepted the task, the responsibility of running for office is because I'm seeing what's happening in New York. This is exactly what I saw in Cuba, except that in Cuba it happened with an armed revolution. Here it's happening with legislation and people who are inclined to socialist policy and collectivist thinking, that they know what's best for everybody else. That's why we are the state we're in, and that's the urgency of that problem, because I have children and grandchildren in this area. The urgency of that problem in Albany is the reason why I accepted the challenge to become a legislator. I said, I have never had that aspiration, but I now have what I consider to be a task.
You know, your point about host families is very critical, and I think a lot of people within the Western New York area have experienced that directly. I know I have. My family was hosted initially when they came. After my grandfather became a citizen, he hosted people. So that was a key element to immigration in the 1900s, and it's something I think that well, there's just a lot of. You're right. It's another topic we can get into later. Let's stick to the main topic here, which is you're running in the 55th district. I have a map here that shows you where the 55th district is. There's the entire map of New York State and the senatorial districts. Now, for those of you who think that the map is oddly shaped, apparently some of these districts, including the 55th district, extend out into the middle of Lake Ontario, because that's the international boundary with Canada.
Right.
I'll ask you how many fish are voting for you, but no, forget about that. Let's
Yeah, I like that one. I like
let's
that one.
let's
Okay.
go and zoom in a little bit more where you can see where the 55th is. And in terms of the land, this covers the towns of Arundecoit, Webster, Penfield, Parrington, including East Rochester and Fairport, Pittsford, and part of the east side of the city of Rochester. So it's all contained within Monroe County. But again, a lot of the issues that you bring up, like the school bus issue, goes well beyond the county borders, and really,
Right.
especially with the electric bus, the rural communities. We've just had that as a topic on this show in the past. How the rural communities really are impacted negatively by these sort of issues. What other kind of issues do you see people discussing as you talk with voters in the 55th district?
Thank you. That's a great one. And it's called Proposal One, Prop One. On November 5th, when you get your ballot at your local polling place, the ballot will, on the front side, will have all the candidates for office and so forth, and you'll vote on that. And then you have to flip the ballot over on the back side, and it will have a long sentence that you won't be able to discern, and you can only vote yes or no. Vote no on Proposal One. Why? Proposal One is an amendment to the New York State Constitution that would declare that any difference in age or ethnicity or any aspect of your life is subject to discrimination. So, for example, today, as we speak, if your son or daughter is 12 years old and you go into their what they call my chart on the University of Rochester Medical System to look up their account, their medical history, and your son or daughter is 12 years old, you'll find that it's blank in many cases. What do you mean blank? They were born here, they went to the hospital, they have a long history. I used to see it. What happened? That there is a suggestion, not even law, that the medical office practice can shield the parent from the information about their son or daughter who's only 12 years old. So I had a lady who's got a PhD in education, and she called me in a panic. She says, I can't see my 12-year-old son's my chart. What happened? And the medical office told her that the son who's 12 years old has to sign a waiver so that his mother and father can see the medical office, the medical record. That's absurd. Okay, now take that and multiply it times 1,000, because if you vote yes for the proposal and they change the Constitution of New York State, which is the intent, then boys will be able to walk into girls' bathrooms and there's nothing you can do. You can't even sue because you're going to lose, because it's part of the Constitution now. Or if it's a young couple wants to go into an assisted living of a home and get tax-free benefits in an assisted living, they'll be able to go in because you can't discriminate against age. So everything will be turned upside down on purpose. That is what that's the tail wagging the dog from Albany. Their intent is to govern your life. Okay, that's their intent. Remember, I haven't used the words Democrat and Republican yet. And the reason is because it has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with it's an ideology, a way of thinking where a few people think that it's their duty, their responsibility, their mission in life to govern everybody else, to tell everybody else what's best for them. Okay, I call that collectivism. It exists in Western Europe now, particularly in England. It exists in Canada and Australia. It exists in Brazil, and they want to bring it here to New York. And I'm saying no. Vote no on proposal 1.
You brought up the idea of Republican and Democrat, and it's perfectly timed for my next question. And that is, it seems, if you look at the national polls now, that there's some sort of realignment going on. And it's not, it used to be, well, if it was a Democrat, you'd vote for a Democrat. If it was a Republican, you vote for a Republican. But it seems like some traditional Democrat constituencies in particular are moving over to the Republican side. And certainly there's a few Republicans that are moving over to the Democrat side too. And the biggest example is just Robert F. Kennedy endorsing Donald Trump. Within New York State and within the Senate district that you're in, are you seeing something similar? Do you get the feel that, maybe that just because you've got an R by your name, you're more receptive to people who've traditionally voted for D's?
Well, thank you for that question. What I'm seeing, and I just saw it again over the weekend in a couple of places that I went to. One was North Winton Avenue Festival, and another one was an Asian Pacific Islander Festival in Pittsburgh. And what I noticed is that, to be honest with you, the older people are clinging to the Democrat Party. So frankly, I don't approach it very much because it's a waste of my time. Why is that? Well, I asked a young person who is leaning to the Conservative Party, to the more conservative ways of thinking about life. And I asked him, what do you think this is? And his answer was that the older people are clinging to news media that are biased in that direction. And that the younger people know where to find information that's not in the mainstream media, and they are better informed about the other side of the ledger. In other words, think about if you're an accountant, you have to know the credits and the debits. Okay, you can't just read from the credits and say, "Oh, our company's good," because you only read the credits. You have to read both the credits and the debits. You have to understand the balance at the bottom of the page, at the bottom right-hand corner. Are you in the black or are you in the red? And that has to do with if you're experiencing a loss or a profit. So what I heard from this young man, and I thought it was very astute, his observation, is that the older people are leaning only on the credit side of the current administration, and they're not looking at the debit side at all, because the media is only looking at the credit side. So he gave me a really good handle on why younger people are leaning to more independence, more freedom, more entrepreneurship, more a say and a control of education at the district level, not at the state level, not at the federal level, but at the district where I live, where I pay taxes. That's what they want to control. But Albany doesn't see it that way. Albany wants to keep pushing agendas across all the districts because they think that they know what's best for everybody else. And the young people are saying, no, I don't like that idea. And that's why they're leaning more into the kinds of things that I'm talking about.
That's actually a great subject for another week. Just the whole idea
Oh, yeah.
where young people are going. Gee, Luis, maybe you should be a producer on this show. You're coming up with great ideas. The other thing you just mentioned is home rule. Home rule is a major issue.
Yeah.
At least it was a major issue last time around. I think they're kind of maybe keeping that on the low because it had such a negative pushback. And this is Albany I'm talking about. Last time around. But unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to just leave you with this one thought. You'll like this from one of our live listeners who unfortunately isn't in your district. I think he's in Cattaraugus or Chautauqua County. But he said, bravo, people with Mr. Martinez's background and experience are desperately needed in government. So, well, you just got one person on your side, I guess. Well, good luck, Luis, and whatever happens in November, I'd like to have you back on the show to talk about some more of these ideas because, yeah, they're really cool. Thank you all for listening and being here. Remember, if you want to be a member of the live audience so you could respond and ask questions, just go to stateof.greaterwestnewyork.com. Right on that front page there, you'll see a little thing on the bottom. That is where you sign up to get the invitation. The invitation for the live studio audience is emailed out every Thursday morning. It's the only way you'll be able to participate in the live audience is through that invitation. Everything is free. If you miss it, now I know a lot of people have to work during noon on Thursdays during the weekday. You can always catch it on the archive. Again, go to State of Greater Western New York, stateof.greaterwesternnewyork.com. And you'll see the archives of our shows there. Otherwise, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and those platforms will notify you when the show is rebroadcast every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Again, thank you all for watching. We'll see you all probably in a couple of weeks because I am actually doing a presentation next Thursday, so I won't be able to be here, but we'll see what we could come up then. So, everyone, thank you for being here, and bye-bye for now.